Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The Foreign Secretary has warned that Britain may need to delay its departure from the EU if a deal is not agreed until late March. Jeremy Hunt said extra time may be needed to pass the necessary laws. The government has insisted all steps are being taken to avoid any delay. Here's our Deputy Political Editor, John Pienaar, with the latest.
Something, anything to brighten the Brexit blues in Downing Street. Chinese New Year celebrations a week early. Fortune cookies too. What's in Mrs May's? A last-minute delay to Brexit? Maybe. Even if there's a deal to celebrate at number 10.
If we ended up approving a deal in the days before the 29th of March, then we might need some extra time to pass critical legislation. But if we're able to make progress sooner, then that might not be necessary.
Passing laws, shuttling legislation between MPs and peers in Parliament takes time. A late deal would need time to turn it into law. No deal could mean a rush to pass legislation on immigration, health, fisheries and more, ready for life after Brexit Day on March the 29th. Today, Labour's leader said any Brexit delay should be used to get a deal.
The government has run down the clock and continues to run down the clock. It's possible that there would have to be an extension in order to get an agreement, because we cannot leave the EU on the 29th of March without an agreement.
Brexiteers seem relaxed about a short delay as long as it is short.
Those who want the longer delay, the open-ended delay, well, we know what that's about. That's about opening the door to have a future referendum or to stop us leaving.
The pressure's on. Today, the government signalled next month's parliamentary break was being cancelled.
We are making good progress. We are under pressure, but it's all very much under control.
The official line, Brexit preparations are on track. All day, the government's been reaching out to MPs in all Brexit factions, looking to build support for a deal. There's talk of more money for worse-off areas. No one will say it's about buying support, but could it help win round Labour MPs?
The areas that voted leave the most are the areas that have not had that investment. Major investment, transformative investment. That's what I want to see.
No one knows if Parliament will back a deal. So many minds on all sides still to change. In the final countdown to March the 29th, Brexit could still be pulled up short. John Pienaar, BBC News, Westminster.
The time is coming up to 6:20, our top story this evening. More pressure on social media companies to do more to protect young people from harmful images online. And coming up, the inquest into the IRA's Guildford pub bombings is to be reopened after more than 40 years.
Later on BBC London, in pain and unable to work, the Londoners struggling because of a shortage of common medicines. And Britain's first female black head teacher reflects on how she overcame prejudice to rise to the top of her profession.
With less than 2 months to go until March the 29th and Brexit, the pressure is growing on businesses across the Channel as well as here. The UK imports almost a third of the food we eat from the EU, so how will the fresh produce that ends up on our plates be affected by Brexit? Our business correspondent Emma Simpson has been to Spain to find out.
Sunny southern Spain, a sea of greenhouses, Salad City, keeping us supplied with fresh produce. Meet the team at Benissa. They've been sending tomatoes to British supermarkets for more than 50 years.
You can already smell how the tomatoes will be on your store. So if you
This is the start of a long journey for these cherry tomatoes.
We are growing about 60 million kilo per year of tomatoes, so it's quite a big amount.
60 million?
Yes.
And a third of them end up on our dining tables. It's a well-oiled machine, but how will this trade flow after Brexit?
The truth is that with no deal, we'll have more cost to add into the chain.
That could be at least another 10%, from extra staff to process customs forms to potential tariffs.
All the costs have been increasing, then our margins are on the lowest point at the moment, so we cannot absorb any more into that chain. So if we put anything else onto it, this will not make a profitable business for us and we'll have to decide to do something else.
this perishable product is all picked and packed within 24 hours.
So it's now 5 p.m. on Monday and 20,000 kilos of tomatoes are now going on to this lorry. And the clock's now ticking because the supermarkets want them on the shelves by Friday.
A 2,000-kilometre journey now lies ahead. He's heading for Cali. Before too long, he's hit the real winter weather. This Spanish haulage company does hundreds of loads a week to the UK.
We haven't been prepared enough, hauliers, agents to handle all the paperwork. It could be delays. It could have a huge impact on the volume that we transport to UK.
Our lorry's now at the Eurotunnel border crossing, but it's having to stay the night. This place is soon to be the Brexit front line.
We're ready. Hard Brexit, soft Brexit. We've been preparing for this for 2.5 years. We've taken the worst case as our goal all the way through.
Can you guarantee everyone else will be ready?
No.
Early this morning, our tomatoes reach England, bound for the shelves. Our journey stops at this supermarket distribution centre.
The nature of our very efficient food supply chain is there's very little surplus cost. So the more inefficient it becomes, the ability of suppliers and indeed the retailers here in the UK to absorb that for very long is very limited. They will be passed on to consumers, and really quite quickly.
The story of this cherry tomato shows us just how reliant we are on the EU for fresh produce, especially at this time of year, and just how slick an operation it is to get it here.
Emma Simpson, BBC News.
MPs will be expected to sit in the House of Commons during the traditional February break to keep up with the latest Brexit developments. The week-long recess, which coincides with many school half-terms, is being cancelled as the official start of Brexit edges ever closer. From Westminster, here's our political correspondent, Carl Dinnan.
This is how quiet the House of Commons was supposed to look 2 weeks tomorrow as MPs took a half-term break from the place. But with Brexit still up in the air, today the government cancelled that break.
I realise that this is short notice for colleagues and House staff, but I do think our constituents will expect that the House is able to continue to make progress at this important time.
Some MPs were worried about how they'd look after the kids.
What provision will be given to honourable members for their children? It can't be right that honourable members have to support their children in that way without the government stepping in and providing proper provision for it.
The funny thing is that although the Prime Minister is still meeting lots of MPs to talk about Brexit, is the Prime Minister, do you think, going to buy your ideas? No one knows if the Commons will have any Brexit business to do during the cancelled break, and the Tory Chief Whip emailed MPs to say those who'd planned time with their families during this week should still be able to take it. But once there is actually something to decide, Mrs May will need all the votes she can get, and that may mean more spending in some Labour constituencies.
If there is significant money helping to rebuild the country, a significant national fund that is directly targeted to areas like and including mine, then of course it's more likely that people will vote for it.
And show you the money.
Show us the money. It's not show me the money. This isn't transactional deals one-on-one, not at all. This is show us the money in our areas with a national fund.
But money won't fix the Prime Minister's most immediate problem, getting the EU to reopen the Brexit agreement. Yet that is why the break has been cancelled here, because the Prime Minister might get a deal for MPs to vote on. There might be legislation to rush through, and we might still leave the EU on the 29th of March as planned. But I don't know anyone here who believes that will actually happen, and today the Foreign Secretary became the latest person to admit that more time might be needed, meaning Brexit will be delayed.
OK, Carla, Westminster, thank you.
Now, Labour MPs who say they will back Theresa May's Brexit deal have been branded cowards and facilitators by another MP from their own party. The row broke out after Theresa May promised extra money for former coal mining communities in an attempt to persuade more opposition members to back a Brexit deal. The government has admitted that time is running out to pass all the laws needed for Britain's departure, and Parliament's half-term break has now been cancelled. Our political editor, Gary Gibbon, has this report.
The Foreign Secretary was a late arrival at the EU Foreign Ministers meeting in Romania tonight, missing one of the last group photos Britain's expected to take part in. But earlier, Jeremy Hunt had signalled that the UK might not be ready to leave this club on the Brexit date of 29th March.
In Brussels, many officials seem convinced that Theresa May is not going to be able to hit the March Brexit deadline to get her deal. And she's going to come to them asking for an extension of the deadline. More recently, quite a lot of officials in Brussels and in EU capitals have been thinking that maybe they should not at that point offer her a short extension of a few weeks, a couple of months, but something much longer, quite a few months, maybe even a year or so.
If Europe came back and said, actually, you want to delay, you're going to have a big one, you're going to be around for a year or two, and you're going to be paying in, you might have to elect more MEPs. There's talk, cabinet ministers have said, that that's what they might try and extract if we asked for delay.
No. There's no way on earth that I believe Parliament will go for that delay.
A fortune cookie delivery at number 10 for Chinese New Year celebrations. Ian Duncan Smith earlier left number 10 talks, at which he was pushing a plan which Brussels thinks dumps the backstop altogether. They say they're baffled whether Theresa May is truly going that far, or just wanting tweaks to the backstop, or is serious about talks she's been holding with the Labour leader, who says he wants the UK in a full-blown customs union.
Well, she was sitting opposite me, and somebody next to her was making notes of what I said, and somebody sitting next to me was making notes of what she said, so I hope she was listening.
Government sources say they have pretty much no hope of getting Mr Corbyn to back them at the next vote on Theresa May's deal. But they do have hopes of getting quite a few of his MPs to do just that. It's emerged ministers have offered money for former mining communities to lure more Labour MPs across.
Yes, it makes it easier for them, because this is real.
This is a sweetener, isn't it, if not a bribe?
This is what's appropriate to our areas. This should have happened before, but it's our chance to make it happen now. And, you know, if this deal goes through, and I'm supporting it going through, and we leave the European Union, and I'm supporting that, I want to see my area benefit from it, so we need the money.
Labour MP David Lammy tweeted, "More fool them, socialists my arse, cowards and facilitators. History will be brutal." But Theresa May and her team have been eyeing the map showing where Labour MPs who abstained or backed her this week have their seats. There were 25 of them, plus 3 independents on Tuesday, and the Tories think they've spotted a pattern, the most significant cluster in pro-Brexit seats in former mining communities in the north of England. Some in her team think there could be even more MPs lurking behind the nearly 30 who've broken cover so far.
I think there are between 40 and 60 who feel deeply uneasy about the stance that we're currently taking. We have to make a decision. We can't continue to prevaricate. We have to be clear 2.5 years on from the referendum.
Some comfort to government whips as we enter the year of the pig. Supposedly an augur of good fortune.
Now, Italy officially fell into recession at the end of last year after a year of political turmoil and sluggish growth across the Eurozone countries. Italy's economy shrank by 0.2% in the final quarter of 2018, following a 0.1% drop in the previous quarter, putting the country into its third recession in 10 years. Critics say Italy's huge budget deficit has damaged market confidence and hurt the economy.
The UK car industry has been put on red alert over a huge slide in investment amid the continued Brexit uncertainty. The Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders said car production slumped by almost a tenth last year, while investment halved to 588 million, with firms waiting to find out what kind of future trading arrangements Britain will have with other countries after Brexit.